So, you want to be a dungeon master.
So you want to be a dungeon master.
So you want to be a dungeon.
So you want to be a dungeon master.
So, you want to be a dungeon master.
That's great. We're here to help. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Justin. This week, we're going to be taking a look at the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. We're going to go over some of the big things that stood out to us. Taylor and I will be doing just kind of a quick glance at the 2024 DMG this time so we can cover as much as possible. From magic items to bastions to all kinds of rules, tables, inspiration, tips. Let's dive in to the Dungeon Master's Guide. But first... Always gonna be a but first. What's a good setting for a one-shot or a short series where the PCs, the party, are sort of quote-unquote locked in to a single location? For example, stuck on an island or something like that, stranded.
Okay. All right. So I thought about this and you ever seen Speed 2?
I have not.
The one where it's on the giant cruise ship?
Okay.
So basically the whole thing is like, there's this cruise ship that you've seen Speed, right? The original one where like they're on the bus and it can't
Keanu
go below
Reeves,
55. Yeah.
Yes.
Can't go below 55 miles an hour. The bus explodes. Same kind of deal. Something happens and the cruise ship basically gets locked out of their engines at max speed. So the engines are running at full power and there's all this crazy shit of like, oh crap, we're coming up onto a port. We can't turn. We can't stop. And they just kind of like plow through this fucking island and keep going. But I just, the like
Rip
a cruise ship
island.
would be F that island. No, but like I think a cruise ship would be kind of a interesting, like there's nothing around you. Like if you're on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean, there's nothing there. And I think that would probably be a pretty fun setting for a one shot, either the same kind of deal with like Speed where you're like, oh crap, we got to regain control of the cruise ship. Or it could be like a murder mystery type of deal, or pirates are a thing. There's so many things that you can do.
You go supernatural with it.
Yeah.
You're stuck at sea.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. Fuck Poseidon.
Mm-hmm.
It's so crazy you brought up a cruise because I was going to bring up a ship as well. But the way I have it written down is I have it on a note card. I have at the very top, it just says trapped on a ship. A, an old-timey ship crossing the Atlantic, or B, a cruise ship / modern times.
Okay.
So we freaking nailed it. And then I wrote kind of the same thing. I wrote murders, missing people, strange weather, mysteries out at sea / ocean.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So just, playing with a lot of trigger warnings for this. If this were to be a series, it would be one of those things of like maybe going the extra mile and being like, heads up, gang, this episode's going to have X, Y, and Z in it, because there will definitely be like some, the way I see it in my head is some horror, some like, what is it called when you're afraid of the ocean in the deep dark, like thessaliophobia or something kind of
something like that. Yeah, I was racking my brain trying to figure it out, and I if I see it, I'll know it for sure. But
there's a TV show I would love for you to watch, and this goes to the listeners as well, but it's called 1899. It's on Netflix. It's only one season and the show gets canceled, which is so effing annoying.
Typical Netflix. It was so good. And it takes place on an old-timey ship that's going from from Europe to the Atlantic and then to the States.
Right. And my gosh, so well done, so interesting. The twists and turns. It has a little bit of supernatural, or moments where you're like, is this supernatural or is this hyper futuristic actually? But this is an old-timey ship in the 1800s. It's 1899, obviously, is the year. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then they do the cool thing of certain episodes will focus in on who you thought was an NPC, but then turns out they have this interesting backstory where you're like, oh shit, that's gonna come into play. So it's just stuck on a ship, same thing, and then some weird supernatural stuff happens also, where there's another ship and it's been deserted for 20 years, even though it's only was missing 2 weeks ago. But when they find the ship, it's ancient, older, that and they're like, what the
Bermuda
hell?
Triangle effect.
weird stuff. Yeah, like it was just so well done. I highly recommend. So yeah, Stuck on a Ship I think is a really fun idea. And I think if you do it on a cruise ship, I think that's also very interesting because kind of the juxtaposition of a Carnival cruise or Disney cruise, the idea of like all the colors, the like almost amusement park feel of it stuck with like, and then juxtaposed next to you're trapped at sea. Like this is not good. Like, oof, that's a fun idea, but also scary. I am not a fan of cruises. I've never been on one, and I'm not interested, really. Gotta be honest.
I haven't either, and it's largely because of Speed 2. Speed 2 made me afraid of cruises because I'm like, oh my God, if we're out in the middle of nowhere, anything goes wrong, we're all fucking dead.
The Titanic made me afraid of cruises.
Honestly, not so much. Not so much for me. Like,
I
don't know.
It wasn't very believable, the movie. I thought that can't happen.
There's no way that could have happened.
There's
ever.
no way. Hey, listen, if a business says a ship is unsinkable, it's unsinkable. Okay. Anyway,
can't be sunk.
I know. I really hope people know that we're being sarcastic. People messaging us being like, they're Titanic deniers. The worst of the worst.
Yeah. PSA from So You Want to Be a DM. The Titanic happened. We
so
fully accept that it happened.
We're
sorry to all the people, right? All the people who died. It was a big tragedy. It's something. Probably
we've always been anti-iceberg, for the record.
Always anti-iceberg. Yeah.
We're against ice. We've said that. Everyone knows that. Anyway, fuck it. Yeah, we've said that a million times. Fuck ice. Wow, look at this. We've circled it all the way in.
Yeah.
Let's get into the meat of the episode
again for a different reason now.
Let's get into the meat of the episode.
Let's do it.
Hey gang, we wanted to talk to you about something pretty important real quick. See, we have some really cool ideas for the future, but we need your help. You can do that by supporting us through our Patreon. At the lowest tier, you get early access to podcast episodes, access to episodes of Action Surge, our post-session table talk show, and entry into a private channel on our Discord server. At the next tier, you can get access to Bonus Action, our bonus content podcast where we talk about a huge variety of D&D and TTRPG related things, like multi-class mystery mashup, where we get 2 random classes and have to build a character, or Monster Matchmaker, where we go over our favorite monsters at each CR level, or recaps of our home campaign, plus so much more. Joining the Patreon helps us continue to grow and put out content that gets better and better as we learn, improve, and try new things. So, check out the link in the description to join the gang today.
So, the Dungeon Master's Guide 2024. There's a lot of like similarities. Obviously, there's going to be so many things that just carry over in terms of the types of things you can find in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Naturally, it's designed for the Dungeon Master, and it's not necessarily something that players need to ever see. It could be very helpful for them because it gives them an insight into what the Dungeon Master has on their mind. Just one of the many reasons.
DM for one session at least.
Exactly what I was just about to say.
That's a personal thing.
That's like a brand thing. That's something we believe in collectively.
Yeah.
That everyone should try DMing so that at the very least you get a little peek at what it's like.
Yeah.
I just give you
find
greater appreciation for the game.
Yeah. I think DMs make better players. And players make better DMs. Both ways. It goes both ways.
It's a ton of fun because you gotta keep both sides in check because it's not really two sides. It's two sides of the same coin. And so the book starts off with something that I really liked, and it started off with a bunch of DM tips, kind of right out of the gate, like almost on one of the first pages. And so here are 5 DM tips that they offer right at the very beginning. The first is embrace the shared story. Just a tip on being collaborative. You guys are telling the story together. It's shared. It's not the DM's story, right? It's the table story.
Right.
Next tip, it's not a competition. goes into the same thing that we've already been saying a couple times.
Yeah,
it's not
literally,
the DM
you
versus
guys,
players.
you just go back and listen to previous episodes. We've been talking about this crap for the whole time.
100%. Which leads us to the third tip: be fair and flexible. Makes a ton of sense. You want to be fair,
and flexible,
so that there's an expectation. There's everything is fair. It's fun. You're here to have fun and play a game. And then flexibility, of course, because people are going to make mistakes. You're going to have like little issues here and there that arise. People don't know the rules as well, and it is what it is. And so just being flexible and open. And the next two play right into that same thing. Bang those out. Communicate with your players, and it's okay to make mistakes. 2 incredible tips. Excuse me.
incredible tips that we've been talking about.
Exactly. But it was nice that they put them in there. That's my point.
Yeah.
Not that they were novel or like groundbreaking, like, or it was like, oh my God. But it's like good that new players who get this book see this.
Yeah.
That's what I think is good. And that's kind of the case for a Dungeon Master's Guide to begin with. There are sections that are like genuinely helpful for anybody. The magic items, the bastions that we'll get into. There's a bunch of sections. There's a ton of tables to roll on. It's great. But there are sections, let's be honest, that if you've been playing the game for years and years, it's just kind of like, oh, what is narration versus roleplay versus combat and exploration? And it's just like, okay, I know that stuff. So like, that's fine. And so some of the stuff we'll go over, if you're an experienced DM, you might be like, I already know this stuff. I don't really need that much help on this. That's fine. But think about the other people who are just getting into DMing or want to try DMing. And for them, seeing this stuff is nice.
Absolutely. It is. So all good tips, good solid tips. And, you know, we've been talking about it and we're going to keep talking about it because that's like literally being a DM is these things. Like being a good DM hits all of these points.
Yep.
And getting into that, the next kind of section is talking about how, you know, every DM is different and that's okay. You know, like everybody's going to have a different play style. Justin and I have talked at length about how our DM styles are different. I have a pretty combat heavy group, whereas Justin and I's table is kind of a little mix of both, but it's a lot of RP. There's a lot of RP involved. And that's kind of one of the ways that your tables can be different. Another thing that you can kind of touch on is what kind of like age groups you're going for. Like, are you looking for a all ages, family friendly kind of game, or you going to explore some more mature themes? You're going to get into kind of some of the spicier aspects, or you're going to get into like the you know, drug use or what have you, any kind of mature
gore,
theme.
horror,
right? Yes,
you know, whatever it might be.
Yep. And then also getting into that, are you going to be getting into kind of like a gritty kind of setting, or more cinematic, more kind of flowy, kind of pretty type of setting? Like, is this, are we getting into the
like Sin City versus Marvel?
Right. Yeah. That's a good comparison. That's a very good comparison. Yeah. Is it going to be serious? Are you guys going to want to be like super, okay, we're going to take this super seriously and oh no, all this? Or is it going to be silly? Are you there for the goofs? I'm personally there for the goofs. I love the goofs.
We lean goof.
We do lean, we're pretty goof heavy here on So You Want to Be a DM. But, you know, there is a place
for
left-leaning
being
super serious.
Far left goofs, some would say.
But there are definitely really good series that are super, super serious. And that's totally okay. It all depends on what your table wants to do. Are we going to be more pre-planned or more improvised? I'm a little column B. Justin's pretty column A. Pre-planning versus the improvisation. I generally don't tend to go find maps. I will throw something together on the fly on Roll20, whereas Justin will go out and find really beautiful battle maps and all these other cool things that are really cool.
Yeah, that are reverse
Yeah.
engineered into the setting.
Right. Yeah. Are we going kind of a general, questing adventure? Are you going to be more thematic? Are you going to be more focused on one specific theme versus kind of everything across the board?
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing, it says, is it going to be morally ambiguous or more heroic? Which, a lot of people can go either way on that. I personally prefer a heroic theme, but, morally ambiguous, that can be fun too. That can be,
Yeah.
kind of toe those lines.
Yeah, absolutely.
a
I
lot
mean,
of
we've
D&D
both
is-
told our own stories about how we've almost tricked our players into kind of tugging at their heartstrings a little bit and being like, whoa, you just killed all those goblins?
Dang.
Bunch of
That
orphans
one had,
now.
yeah,
Bunch.
dang. Look, he had a note from his little kid in his pocket. Dang, you
man.
just killed him.
He was
Like,
just
and
he
you
was only fighting to get a cure to save his wife. You monster.
Jeez. What are you fighting, Mr. Freeze?
God. But yeah, no, those are all great points because it really is
Yeah.
like they're spectrums and like every GM falls differently on them. And it's also game to game. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't necessarily say that like every single setting that I've done or game campaign, whatever that I've DM'd for is the same for all of these questions.
Right.
How serious, how
for
silly,
sure.
how gritty or cinematic, whatever. But I think
It's all
those are
just
all
kind of
like
different.
really good things because I
Yeah,
like
it's all
bringing up
different
these
things
things.
to think about.
Yeah, 100%. I like bringing up all these things as a DM in session 0 also as like an
Absolutely.
expectation thing.
And this
Heads
kind of
up.
gets back to that
We lean towards
embrace the
silly.
shared story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of everybody telling at the table versus just the DM kind of railroading everybody through it.
Yeah, just like giving permission a little bit. Or it almost feels like, or like letting people know. It goes back to the idea of like guidelines and like having some amount of rails on the road can actually be very freeing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Some other things to think about when you're first starting out or, coming up with how you're wanting to run your game. Are you going to be doing house rules? You're going to be doing rules as written, little column A, little column B. I personally, if we're doing battle maps and stuff, most of my players are used to the flanking rule, so I generally will keep it around. How are you doing crits? How are you doing, rolling for stats and stuff like that? Are you going strictly by the book? Or, running house rules? What kind of atmosphere are you going for? This is kind of, go check out our last episode of themes and vibes. Kind of what are we going for this campaign? Delegation. Can you talk to me a little bit more about this?
They put this in here as a section of the book to just talk about how, because again, this all falls under the idea of like every DM, every table is unique. So that's the house rules, the atmosphere, and then delegation is this idea of every once in a while at some tables, every table does it maybe differently, and sometimes it's the DM that's making these decisions. You might delegate certain roles or tasks out to the players. For example, keeping track of initiative.
Gotcha.
Or maybe it's somebody's rule, somebody at the table is designated as like, hey, you're like the head party member. I need you to like, if somebody's summoning an animal and they need a fucking stat block, that's on you. I, as the DM, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, there's like an elder. The DM turned player at the table is now that person. So that it's just delegating certain tasks or roles.
I gotcha. And then also, you can learn how to be a DM by watching other DMs. Shocking concept, I know, but I've also been talking about this since episode 1 of, go out and watch Critical Role or Dimension 20 or any of the, what is it? The one that I watched, NADPOD or Greetings Adventurers or any, like I said, there's so many out there.
Yeah,
You know,
hell,
if
go watch
you're-
ours.
Go watch ours. Yeah, we have so many. Yeah.
Yeah, link in the
Jeez,
description.
why was that not the first thing that came out of my mouth? I don't know, but yeah, there are so many different actual plays to go out and watch, and you know, if you're interested in being a DM but you've never done it before, I highly recommend at least watching a few episodes of something just to kind of get a feel for how it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
A lot of really great DMs out there, a lot of really great, you know, tables out there.
And just remember, every DM is unique.
Every one of them.
So,
You know?
so
If you're
every
not
once in a
a
while,
crazy fan of one
Yeah.
type, go check out a different one.
Yep. Okay. Well, after this point in the book, there's this whole section in chapter 1 on ensuring fun for all. Now, for Taylor, myself, and like our tables with So You Want to Be a DM and our home games, this is all second nature for the most part. Like we already do this. We already have established a lot of processes to make these things true, or put them in place. But again, for new DMs, for early DMs, for people who maybe haven't played in a very long time and are coming back to D&D, whatever it may be, this is good. It's good that people are seeing this, even if for us personally, it's a little redundant, but I love that it's in the book, and that's the important part. And so it goes over a whole section on ensuring fun for all. It goes over mutual respect, setting expectations. It even has, and there are a couple of these throughout the entire book for different things to keep track of. They have a lot of resources for like, almost like, I want to use the word worksheet, like a little, I don't know, a little physical device to keep track of things. And so they have one specifically for game expectations. It would be like, you and I actually, Taylor, have made a intake form for casting for our actual plays now that we're going to start using. And it would be similar to that.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like, I guess it's something, it's a little annoying because it's in a book, right? And so on the back of the page is information, so you couldn't rip it out. So you'd have to either photocopy your physical book. Obviously, if you have the digital version, it's different.
Monster.
I would never. I'm just saying, hypothetically. But
Right.
it is helpful. And then they go over hard and soft limits, how to communicate those limits, how to play the game with limits in play, what that's like, what to expect. They go over intra-party conflict. You know, different players, different PCs having arguments with other PCs, other players, whatever. And then they break up the next section into two parts. First, respect for the players, sharing spotlight, limits on like death and tragedy and certain things, like how far you're willing to go in the story, what you're willing to handle. That's goes back to hard and soft limits. There's even a little tiny section on DM die rolling, whether to do it in public or private. And it's not saying you must do this or do this. It's just saying, here's what people do. They either do this. Some people do this, you know?
Right.
So it's just giving you the options, giving you the opportunity to make the decision that's best for your table. And then the next section, respect for the DM. Sort of the social contract of adventurers, the most basic principle of like, you're here to play D&D. The DM's putting a lot of time into some shit. Just be a good player. As broad as that is, that can mean a million things. But it just means like, hey, we all sat down for this 3 hours that we finally scraped together to all meet. And I'm like, hey, the dragon's attacking. And everyone's like, fuck the dragon. We're going to do something totally random. And it's like, okay, guys, but we set up the whole adventure for you guys to fight this dragon. Like, you guys knew about the dragon. There's a certain level of it, of like this contract of just like, come on, man.
Come on. Yeah. We're all here. We're all here to play this game, and like, don't go off the rails.
Like, you're all adventurers.
Like, yes,
and then you all retire.
You can do anything you want, but come on now.
I know. Yeah. There's
At least
a little
attempt to go the way
required
that
metagaming.
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of it. It also goes over different ways to handle rules discussions, how to discuss character knowledge, like the difference that it really is like metagaming. Talking about the difference between player knowledge and character knowledge, what the player knows and what the character knows. as well as antisocial behavior, kind of like the edgelords of the world.
I'll go back to any one of our Reddit horror stories episodes, and that's what they're talking about.
There's probably one or two lurking about, but yeah, that was kind of the rest of chapter 1. It was really nice.
Okay, and so then getting into chapter 2 is kind of all about, like, chapter 1 is kind of going over the expectations and setting up the game. Chapter 2 is about actually running the game. So, knowing your players and kind of shaping your game around that, how to handle different, what they like, what they don't like. Like I said earlier, my party's all about combat. Our party is generally all about, or not all about, but mostly about role play and kind of the interpersonal of stuff. Then also how to handle different groups and table sizes. Obviously, running a game with 2 people is going to be vastly different than running a game with 10 people. If you're running a game with 10 people, God bless you.
God bless you.
Jeezy Pete's. That's a lot. Dude. That's a lot. I think
dude. Cheesy Peters. Fuck.
Yeah. I think
jump.
Like the biggest table size I think I could probably handle is 6. 6 is a lot.
Yeah. If it were a one shot, I could do 10.
True.
You know what I'm saying? Because it would just be the adrenaline of being like, once this is done, it's done. I can get through this. Right?
Right.
But you know.
Whole campaign with 10 people. That's a lot.
Know.
It's a lot of backstory stuff to fit. Try and fit in.
There would be no backstory. It would be the most basic hack and slash bullshit. Y'all are each other's backstory. You're one family. 10 siblings. Yeah. That's how we make this happen. My God. Shared backstory. It's one backstory for 10 players.
You're all siblings. You grew up together. You all have the same life experiences.
Same parents. There's no bullshit there.
No dead parents, and we've got the edgelords with the rogue, and like, my dark backstory. No, you all came from a happy family. Your parents are still alive.
It would be funny if there was still an edgelord. My parents, they're pretty good, I guess. I guess they treated me all right. Remembered my birthdays. But whatever. It's not enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually knew a few kids like that, and like coming up of like,
of course, dude.
They're like, oh my God, I just hate them so much. I'm like, they just got you an Xbox. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but it's a freaking refurbished one. It didn't even give me Halo.
Right? Yeah.
They got me Gran Turismo, the racing game. I told them I don't like that. Gran Turismo? No, thank you. Damn, dude. You just brought up so many people from my high school. This one friend who I was like, there was a like middle school, never talked to the kid, always was like kind of a little bit of that outcast kind of category. Hair always like so much in front of his eyes that I was always like, how is he not walking into stuff? Named Kyle. And then in high school, we chilled a couple times. And he was actually really cool and funny, amazing. But because I just started listening to again like some pop punk from the like like Taking Back Sunday and like Red Jumpsuit Apparatus and
Sum 41.
Dude, I'm listening to like the craziest stuff. I listened to an Enter Shikari song the other day. I was like, whoa, this brings me back, man. Some AFI.
Oh,
Miss Murder, dude.
Throwback.
Anyway, before we get too off topic.
Yeah. All right. So the other things that kind of want to talk about is how to incorporate new players. If you're, either have a player drop out and you want to bring somebody in, or just bring somebody in to make the party bigger. Either or, it kind of goes over some tips on how to incorporate new people. How to handle new like alternating DMs. If you want to have multiple DMs, I did this back in my 3.5 days of having basically everybody has a character, but then we take turns, like a round robin type of deal of DMing, of basically it's just a bunch of dungeon crawls back to back of you guys get to this one spot. At the end, the MacGuffin is a port key. You guys get whisked away somewhere else, and then the next DM takes over from there. Or if you want to, try to continue the story together, each person, whatever. Totally valid way to play. And honestly, it makes things a lot easier in some aspects of, because you don't have the weight on your shoulders every week of being the DM.
True. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool that they have sections on everything, it feels like.
How to do narration. Are you going pre-scripted, or are you just kind of going off the top of your dome piece? And how to resolve like dice outcomes of, oh, I just said this crazy thing and then I rolled a 1. How are you going to resolve that? Or
do you need to roll it all?
Right.
Like sometimes, you know what I mean? Somebody's like, hey, I go to open the door. It's like, well, if it's an unlocked door, why are you having them roll?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then it kind of goes over some tips of running social, exploration, and combat encounters, what all of those kind of look like, what travel and weather kind of would, how that affects the campaign and the motion of the story in general. And then the biggest point of contention from, well, not the biggest, but one of the biggest points of contention of DMs of XP versus milestone leveling. Not saying if you're doing XP leveling, you're doing it wrong, but
it just feels like you're doing more work.
It does.
To me,
it does.
least.
It just adds a lot more math. And also theoretically, your party could just run around and just kill a bunch of rats and level up that way. And then they're just gods.
XP farmers.
Yeah.
Staying in the newbie zone. Rat grinders.
I'm fighting rat grinders. No, I'm just gonna keep killing all these slimes.
Amazing. Yeah.
But yeah,
I always pick milestone. Personally, I think it makes it easier for me to write and to plan. Because balancing encounters is such a thing anyway, and it usually depends on the character's level and stuff. So it's just like easier to be like, well, I know that they're going to be level 10 at this point, rather than be like, they might be at level 10. It's like, no, I want to know.
I mainly use XP as a kind of going off point for encounter calculation of how difficult the encounter is going to be. And that's and that's kind of one of the biggest things that they talk about in the original DMG, is kind of that calculation of, hey, if your party is going against a group that's much larger than them, the XP is going to be multiplied. It's going to be added because it's, for action economy's sake.
Right.
It's going to be
versus
right for action economy's sake. You as a DM are going to be taking a lot more swings than the players are.
Yeah, and it does go over that in a later section. I want to say chapter 4.
Okay,
but until then, chapter 3. The DM's Toolbox is what this chapter was called, and I said, "Oh, interesting." And then, as much as I like that this is included in the book, I'm not mad at it at all. The order felt a little strange because this is the first part of chapter 3, and it's chase scenes and like how to do them and like different ideas for how one would run a chase scene. Some examples, some little ideas and stuff. And then it goes into how to homebrew a bunch of stuff. And there's a ton of other stuff in this chapter. This chapter's huge. But it feels a little like from a book layout standpoint, it was just like,
yeah,
maybe start with the homebrew thing. Why would you not start
with the homebrewing stuff?
Yeah. But anyway, so how to do a chase scene, that's in there. That's pretty cool. Fun. How to homebrew, and then they have a whole section on different things that you can homebrew and how one would do it and different examples and stuff. Even like resources and materials to help you homebrew. It starts with backgrounds, how to create your own background using the 2024 rules, which, as we know, are very different from 2014 in terms of all the things that go in a background, including ability score increases, feats. There's like origin feats and stuff now, you know. How to homebrew a creature or a monster. They use the word creature, which makes me think it. I need to double check, but I don't know if it's specific to like pets. I think then they would probably use the word. I think maybe they just moved away from the word monster. Maybe no, it is any kind of thing. It might as well be monster. So just how to homebrew a creature. Gotcha. Then they go over homebrewing a magic item as well as homebrewing a spell.
Word.
A really fun idea. I love the idea of that. When we used to have a wizard in the group, in our home game, I was going to let them come up with their own spell at some point and do something cool with that. And then they would get to name it the same way that there's like Melf's Acid Arrow and Tasha's, you know, hideous laughter. So that's always a fun thing to add in. Then
Caustic Brew.
Yes, Tasha, that witch. I love her. Then there's a whole section on curses and diseases with a bunch of examples, which I thought was really nice, really fun. They also have how to handle death, like PC death.
Okay.
Different examples of how you could handle it. If like players, for example, are like really, really against it, you know, and they're like, I really don't want my character to die. It offers different examples of what you could do instead. For example, like one of the options was almost similar to Pokemon, where it's like instead of dying when you fail your death saves, like instead you go into a coma.
Okay.
And then you have to like
center.
You have to go back to a Poke Center, but it's more than that. Like you do have to like roll dice every long rest to see if you wake up.
Okay.
So then it just gives you where it's like, okay, your character is not dead, like factually. However, like the equivalent of getting to 0 hit points and then failing your death saves is a big deal. And so even if the consequence isn't death, it needs to still be serious. So like it's this coma thing where if you're not hitting these DC 10, whatever it is, con saves or whatever, or if it's even just like a straight roll on a D20, then you're not waking up. And then maybe you play an NPC for the time being until your character does wake up or whatever. However the table decides to handle it. So it's cool. They have a ton of tables in this chapter for even something as small as like doors, like what the material is it locked, is it trapped, whatever. And then they have a ton of tables on dungeons. How long is the hallway? What is at the end of this hallway? What's on the other side of this door? Is it a chamber, another hallway, a set of stairs? Is it a trap? Is it a pit? Whatever. There's a whole section on environmental effects and hazards and stuff. Everything from like magical storms to just like a lightning storm, a flood, fire, all kinds of shit like that. Acid, lava. They go over fear and mental stress, including like madness and all those different types of things you can add in as different conditions and supernatural effects of the environment. There's also a part about firearms and explosives. If you wanted to include firearms into your setting, everything from old school muskets to alien rail guns. So like it really runs the gamut. Also has the explosives in there and stuff. So that's fun. There's a tiny section on gods and pantheons and how to incorporate those into your game. Hazards and traps and poisons. This is a huge improvement. I mean, the traps section is really, really nice. It gives a bunch of examples of different kinds of traps, how to make a trap, how to run traps in the game, you know, investigation checks and DCs and all that stuff. The poison section was awesome. Just the idea that they offer, you know, in my experience running 5e for so long, poison is one of those things like diseases and stuff where I feel like it never gets any play, right? It's like at most you take poison damage and you get quote unquote poisoned, and that's it. It's disadvantage on those things, and that's it. But this section of the book gives you a ton of different types of poisons that all have unique things that happen, you know?
Right.
So that's nice. Then this section of the book really is, this chapter 3, this DM's toolbox is massive. It might be a mimic because it's full of bones. But this next, then there's a section on renown. There's a section on renown and how that works and like how famous your party is and all the different ways to maybe run that as a potential mechanic in your game.
Mm-hmm.
It goes over freaking settlements and like how to make settlements really quickly with different tables. There is so much in just this one chapter, genuinely. Like the trap examples are all crazy. Parts of a trap, the severity and levels, the trigger, the duration, a bunch of examples of traps, ways to level them up where, like, for example, they have a collapsing roof is a potential trap. The trigger is a creature crosses a tripwire. The duration is instantaneous. And then it kind of has it at higher levels. So the idea of this is what the DC check is if they're level 1 through 4. But if they're levels, let's say 11 through 16, the save DC to find this fucking tripwire is instead of an 11, it's a 17. And instead of doing like 11 bludgeoning damage, it does 55 bludgeoning damage. So it's nice that those things are in there. And that's chapter 3.
All right. And chapter 4 is pretty much all about creating the adventures, kind of a step-by-step breakdown of how to put an adventure together. Step 1, it's just going to be lay out the premise, figure out what you're going to be doing. Step 2, draw the players in with either plot hooks or NPCs or what have you, kind of starting to come up with the ideas of how to get the players involved with the encounter, with the adventure itself. Step 3 is going to be to plan out your encounters, whether they be combat, exploration, or roleplay. You know, all the 3 big jams in Dungeons and Dragons. What are they going to be? What are they going to look like? Who's going to be involved? And then step 4 is kind of bring it to the end. What is the end result going to be of this adventure? It's got lots of tables for plot hooks and different encounters for different party levels. It also kind of gives you tips. This is what I was talking about earlier of using the challenge rating and the XP of monsters and other, NPCs and stuff to build out your encounter to make sure it's not too hard or too easy. Goes into that quite a bit. And then it gives you a few examples of adventures and encounters that you can use in your day-to-day DMing life.
Hell yeah.
Pretty straightforward there. I mean, it's pretty just, here's how you do it. Here's how you do the DM thing.
Yeah. And it is distinct because when they say create an adventure, what they mean in the context of D&D is something a little bit shorter, because the very next chapter is instead of creating adventures, it's creating campaigns.
Right.
So this is now stringing together all of the adventures into a single setting and or plot line or story or what have you, into many adventures. Chapter 5 not only goes over the creation of campaigns and all that kind of stuff and tons of tips on that, it also goes over the setting of Greyhawk with great example with locations, NPCs, history, lore, pantheons, factions, settings, maps, like a ton of information on Greyhawk.
Greyhawk that's not the Critical Role setting, is it? No.
That's Exandria.
What is that? Exandria.
Greyhawk's one of the old ones.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the OGs.
I really did.
It's like Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, and Eberron are like 3 of the old ones. I don't know where.
Only recently started getting into the actual bona fide lore of D&D. Most of the stuff that I've done has been homebrew.
Same. I pick up on a little things here and there with our home game Sword Coast Q, because the like starting block of inspiration is Faerun and Forgotten Realms, But then I feel no offense to the authors of that. I feel zero loyalty, so it's kind of like whatever, and I just change whatever the hell I want,
Right.
But do me a favor. Do you have a D12 by you?
I do.
Go ahead and roll a D12 for me. I want to see what adventure you would get for levels 11 through 16 PCs.
So I said I had a D12. I actually have most of my dice near me. I had to find the D12 in the sea of all of my other dice. I got a 5.
Cultists hope to persuade a dragon to undergo the rite that will transform it into a Dracolich.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell
Pretty
yeah. That's
gnarly.
That's pretty dope, actually. Like a Dracolich fight. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh,
pretty
boy.
Pretty good stuff. So that's just an example of some of those tables for encounters of different party levels. But that's in chapter 4. Chapter 5 goes over the campaign stuff, settings, setting of Greyhawk, tons of different stuff there. And then, and along the way, like I said earlier, there is a ton of like, I don't know, different tables, graphs, note-keeping tools, different like resources that one could use to keep track of things as they're in the creation process, the world building and stuff. I'm looking right now at a campaign journal entry where this could be really helpful for players as well. This looks like you write the session number, session date, the adventure title, or whatever. Important events from earlier sessions that might have bearing on this game session. Brief summary of what's planned for this game session. Additional notes. So yeah, just helpful little tools. Campaign conflicts. Conflict number 1, adventurers versus blank. Conflict number 2, adventurers versus blank. And so easy ways to write all this different stuff. Tons of different examples. And then chapter 6, I'm a huge fan of. This really excited me because they've definitely gone into greater detail than previous editions. And that is cosmology in chapter 6.
Okay.
We're getting into the planes of it all. Okay.
Nice.
We got the material realms, we got the transitive planes, inner planes, outer planes, positive and negative planes. Red fish, blue fish, one fish, two fish. And so they have like the weird little cosmology maps of like the wheels and how fucking psycho they look. They have included interesting elemental planes that go in between the elemental planes we are used to.
Really?
So, in between fire and earth is magma.
I was about to say like a
In
lava
between-
plane or something.
In between earth and water is ooze, the plane of ooze.
Oh, okay.
Interesting, right? Kind of like mud, I guess.
I guess, but like also, like is
I
this
know.
like where like the gelatinous cubes and stuff come from?
It's an absolutely incredible question, and if I find it, I'll let you know.
Cool.
Unfortunately, I don't yet. But when I get there, I'll let you know. But they go over all kinds of stuff on how to do interplanar travel, like different ideas. They bring up things like Yggdrasil, obviously the world tree that grows between all of the realms of Norse mythology, which is obviously a huge thing. The river Styx is another example of an interplanar natural phenomenon. Then they go
Gotcha.
over in more detail than you might imagine, and especially more detail than in past books. They go over all of the planes in a surprising amount of detail. Now, of course, there are some that are longer than others, you know? Like I'm looking at the astral plane. Pretty big section. They go over a ton of stuff, psychic winds, the different effects it could have, different adventures that you could have in the astral plane. But that's a section that they have in every plane. Everything from the Beastlands, Bitopia, Carcerai, the Demi-planes. There's a little paragraph on adventures that you could run there. Plane of earth, plane of air, plane of water.
It's cool that they give you kind of examples of stuff to do in the planes rather than just here's all the information you need for it.
Yeah, just like wish I could I passed it already. Find you an example. Boop boop boop. Outlands adventures. The Outlands is the closest to the outer planes. Come to being like a world on the material plane. Adventurers can travel easily from one gate town to the next. Adventures in the Outlands often involve the conflicts between opposing planar influences. Yeah, it just gives you different ideas and shit.
All right.
It's a ton. It's a lot of information. I really enjoy that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm
that's
glad
really
that
cool.
they did that. That's really awesome. A ton of inspiration.
So yeah, moving on to chapter 7. This is all about the loot, baby. This is how much treasure you should be giving out, how much things cost when during your fun little shopping episodes. If you find them fun, if you don't find them fun, whatever. But
Then you're
you know
doing
how
them
much
wrong.
stuff. No, you're not doing them wrong. It's fine. Um, some people find it boring, and that's okay.
Wrong.
And
It's great.
okay, all right. Well, we'll agree to disagree on this one. Um, it gives you everything you need to know about magic items as far as usage and all that stuff. It also gives you your big list, like in the 2014 rulebook has a huge list of magic items that you can use. This one also has a huge list of magic items that you can use.
Get some new ones.
Get some new, yeah,
There's some new stuff.
That's
Can I go
right.
over one really quickly?
Sure.
They've added in this these things called inspelled armor or inspelled weapons.
Okay.
And the way that it works is it has a spell permanently in it. So in your weapon, in your armor, one or the other, right?
Right.
And depending on the level of the spell is how rare the magic item is and what the save DC and all that kind of stuff would be also. So it can go anywhere from cantrip, which would be an uncommon magic item, all the way up to an 8th level spell, which would be
Jesus.
considered legendary. And you just get to cast this once a day from your item.
Okay. That's cool.
Oh, excuse me.
I like that.
I'm completely wrong. It has 6 charges a day, and it costs a charge to cast the spell.
Okay.
Now, it does require attunement, and it does not offer any +1s, +2s, nothing like that, just the spell.
It is just
And the fact that it's magical. But still, I mean,
Very
we're
cool.
talking about a fucking 8th level spell. Now, there are some requirements for, like, the schools of magic it can be and stuff, but the weapon has less limitations. But still, how fucking cool is that? Just
yeah.
That's sick as hell. They have the Hand of Vecna, the Eye of Vecna. There's an item in here that I really would love to talk about. I'm trying to look for it. You have a favorite magic item while I'm looking for it?
Personal favorite, Wings of Flying. I also am a rather large fan of the Deck of Many Things. All the different wands, like Wand of Fireball.
Those are pretty solid.
Necklace of Prayer Beads is a really good one.
It is really good. Really powerful. There's another new magic item, and we'll do like a whole episode maybe on new magic items, but there's another one in here called the Hat of Many Spells, and it's like a wizard hat. And pretty much if you're a wizard and you have that magic item and you attune to it and stuff, you can just cast a wizard spell that you don't have in your spell book, as long as it's a level that you can normally cast.
Right.
So, like, let's say you can cast 9th level spells and you don't have Wish, like, prepared or whatever. You could just do it from this hat.
jeez.
You have to roll a dice about it. Otherwise, it just,
Yeah.
like, otherwise crazy shit can happen where you accidentally,
Right.
like, blow up or do something insane. But, there's a chance it could just work, which is really
That's
crazy.
crazy.
But it's funny because they put a very funny and stupid, like, clause in there, if you will. That's like, every time you use it and you cast a spell using this hat of many spells, the spell comes out of the hat. So you have to take the hat off, and as if you're pulling a rabbit out of the hat, you pull the spell out of the hat.
Hilarious.
So it's a very powerful magic item, but you have to use it in a dumb way. And I think that's so fucking funny.
Yeah. And just do Cone of Cold. You just take the hat off and point the open end at something.
Yeah, exactly. Hilarious.
Yeah, that's really cool. But yeah, lots of cool new magic items. Check it out. Chapter 8 is all about bastions. And this is a new kind of thing with the 2024 rule set. And basically what a bastion is like a home base or like fortress for your party. It goes over how you get one, what you can do, some of the different things that you can do with it. You can add on different facilities that you can do stuff like potion crafting or artificing or stuff like that. And kind of gives you bonuses while you're at your home base to do these things.
Yeah. The Bastion gets its own action, which you can take once every 7 in-game days.
Jeez.
So, for example, if it was like, okay, in between adventures, you're taking 6 weeks to chill. That would mean 6 Bastion actions to take. And then it depends on which facilities your Bastion has. And there's all different kinds of information on hirelings, on how much these things cost to build. Because as you can imagine, when you first get your Bastion, it's small. It's a little guy. You know what I mean? It's like any of those bullshit app video games that you see where somebody's like defending a fortress. You know what I mean? It starts off very small. The zombies come in and they're like, I have to upgrade to get the zombies out of here. Go to the App Store right now. Available on iOS. Shut up.
Yeah, I was just about to say one of those ones where you have to run around and get the coins, and then you go to the spot, and all the coins jump off your back into the thing, and then bing, the wall pops up.
And so it offers all these different like additions, like add-ons to your Bastion, and it's very interesting. They're run almost like, just from a mechanical standpoint, the thing that they remind me of. This is stupid, but like Eldritch Invocations, because there's prerequisites. So you can't just willy-nilly pick one and be like, we're going to have one of these. It's like, no, you guys don't qualify for that one, actually. So, for example, you can give your Bastion a demi-plane. It can have its own plane of existence. But that's a level 17 thing. You have to... It's a level 17 Bastion facility. So that's like an upgraded thing, you know? If you want a gaming hall, you could put a fucking casino. That's a level 9 thing. A garden. And then all these examples like of different things to do.
You invite people into your Bastion to gamble, and you can make passive income on that?
Dude, it's all kinds of stuff. So like,
that's crazy.
A gaming hall offers recreational activities like chess and a game of darts, cards, or dice. When you issue the trade order to this facility, the facility's hirelings turn the gaming hall into a gambling den for 7 days. At the end of the 7th day, roll a 1d100 and consult the following table to determine your portion of the house's winnings.
Damn, that's really cool.
Dude. The garden, you can grow a ton of food. Like one of the examples is your harvest, you can get 100 days worth of rations. You can get a guild hall. That's another level 17 one, because when you build a guild hall, it comes with an entire guild for which you are the guild master.
Nice.
You could literally have an adventurers guild be a part of your Bastion.
That's awesome.
Yeah, these are fucking nuts. They also have a thieves guild. Laboratory, meditation chamber. It's a level 13 one. Fortifying yourself, giving yourself inner peace. Whoa. Menagerie, observatory, reliquary, a pub. That's cute. Sanctuary,
very
a smithy.
So you basically can create your own little town.
Bro, it kind of is like that. I mean, you're creating your own little commune, bro. This is where we get our, this is from forever ago. I don't know if you're going to remember this, but my idea to build a paladin who, instead of casting commune, would cast commune.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, no, it's cool, man. Everyone's part of the family, dude. Here on the on the yard. Here
great.
at the compound, dude. We're all family, brother. Listen, let me lay my hands on you, dude. It looks like that's a gnarly bruise.
Snarly, dude. Gnarly cut.
It's just so funny. Just really like kind of if Midsommar took place in California. Like Santa Monica Midsommar is what I want to go for with a paladin. And I just really focus on this fucking Bastion. That's going to be my whole character arc. I've been thinking about some funny character ideas, dude.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. Great. Yeah, I want to build a I was trying to think about how to do. Let me ask you this from a DM perspective, because I think I know the answer from a rules perspective. I know what the rules say, but what is just a DM's vibes think? And that is this question. 4 elements monk, right? Okay. You're spending key points. You're using spells. You're casting them technically. That's what the rules would say. I've gone back. I've reread how it words it in the 4 elements subclass.
Yeah,
it says
2
cast
points to
spells.
cast a spell. Yeah.
So you're telling me that if I multi-class with Barbarian and I go into a rage, you're not going to let me put fire on my fists and punch somebody with flame fists? Because technically it's a spell.
Yeah, no, I don't think I would. I really don't.
Oh man, that's no fun.
I know.
How else am I gonna make this
little bummer
fucking anime character? Damn. But here's the other great news, and we'll end on this.
Okay.
There is a new magic item, and it has some fucking oomph to it. Okay.
Okay.
This magic item, at first glance, I was like, oh, this is crazy. And then I really thought about it and I was like, oh. And the second thing is this. I know you haven't seen the sort of second season of Jujutsu Kaisen yet, but eventually you will. And you will see why this magic item is a must for my Megumi Fushiguro build.
Okay.
I absolutely need this as a magic item. It would be his trump card, so to speak. This is a last resort kind of thing. Now, this is a legendary magic item, and it is a single-use scroll.
Okay.
A legendary single-use item. It is called the Scroll of Titan Summoning. When you take a magic action to read this scroll, a particular Titan named in the scroll appears in an unoccupied space, on the ground, or in water that you can see within 1 mile of yourself. The DM picks a suitable Titan or determines it randomly by rolling on the table below. The Titan is hostile towards all other creatures and disappears when it drops to 0 hit points.
Crazy.
If the Titan is summoned into a space that isn't large enough to contain it, the summoning fails and the scroll is wasted. Taylor, can I have you roll a D100?
14.
14, you have summoned an Animal Lord.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a new monster stat from the monster, what is it called? Monster Manual, that's it, 2024. But also on the list, just to give you the other ones, Animal Lord, Blob of Annihilation, a Colossus, Elemental Cataclysm, Empyrean, a Kraken, or a Tarask.
And it's just hostile to everything.
Hostile to everything. So it will fight you.
I get
but what an interesting last resort kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
What an interesting last resort thing. So that it's a must for Fushiguro because there's a moment in season 2 where he summons the unsummonable. But yeah, the Curse of the 10 Shadows, baby. He's one of my favorite characters. I want to play him as a D&D character so bad, and I'm still trying to math it out because in my head I need to mix monk and conjuration wizard.
Right.
But I also know that there's some sorcerer things in there that also maybe make sense. But it depends on how you want to do the build. I want to really focus on fist fighting and like being decent at martial stuff, but also I summon animals. I summon shit. Not animals, but you know. But
right, and not insignificant shit. So it's
no,
they're
doing things. Yeah.
Right.
They're doing things. And so, yeah, playing into that idea of I just really want that conjuration wizard thing where it's like everything you summon you can't break concentration unless you want to. I really want to get to that level, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Dungeon Master's Guide, tons of stuff. I can't wait to go over it in more detail, especially bastions. Yeah, I do think that it's really, really cool. It is a very interesting part of the game. That's why they've done a really good job of adding in a ton of stuff that isn't necessarily mandatory, but could just spice up your game. Add another element, another mechanic, whether it's getting in depth about different types of poisons, you know, or new magic items, bastions, having a stronghold. It'll be really interesting to see how that plays out in future games. Because I think the bastion idea is really cool. Yeah, it's interesting to see. I need really to do more reading on it. Yeah, we'll have to do a whole episode on bastions. Yeah,
we might have to, whenever this whole situation in Waterdeep is done in our campaign, it would be nice to roll that into our home game. I'd like to see that. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, as always, thanks to Mr. Pibb.
What?
Newest sponsor on the list, Mr.
Absolutely
Pibb.
not.
Sort of like Dr. Pepper, but
Oh
less.
my god, no. Okay.
And it's okay.
That's all we can get into this time. Thanks for tuning in. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Soyouwannabeadm, or you can ask us a question at soyouwannabeadm@gmail.com. If you like the episode, don't forget to give us 5 stars in a review wherever you found us. Check out the Patreon, Twitch, and our merch with the link in the description. Merch! And join us next time for more Dungeon Master tips and tricks.
Bye.
See you!
And now I get to shout out the members of our Patreon gang. Nub Muffins, may Paylor's light shine upon you. And then there's Tappy, Molly, and Elijah. Thank you all so much for being members of our Patreon gang. Remember, you can find the link to that in the description of the episode. And also remember this, we love you. Thanks again, and tune in next time for more tips and tricks from So You Wanna Be a DM.